You know, your campaign put out in a critique of President Trump and says if he doesn't do these things, you know, he could cost lives. Do you think there is blood on the president's hands, considering the slow response? Or is that too harsh of a criticism?
Do you think that's a little too harsh? Well, just a little, Mr. Todd. You see, Trump haters like Todd believe that the president has responded incompetently to the coronavirus pandemic. After all, this is a president who's routinely being skewered by critics for allegedly not listening to experts, right?
And we've seen it with this long list of situations where he basically contradicts his own experts, his own military leaders, and says, I'm the commander-in-chief, I was elected, and without being briefed or without following the briefing that he gets from his leaders saying, you know, I'm going to go with my gut.
Now, in the case of the coronavirus, President Trump is being hammered by some of the same people for listening to his medical expert opinion. Is there any medical expert more respected than Dr. Fauci of the National Institutes of Health, who has served under 6 presidents, both Republican and Democrat?
You know, I hope all of our viewers understand Dr. Fauci's history. He is the definition of a public service. He's been serving as the head of infectious disease since 1984, 6 presidents, and has always been a calm voice of reason and candor and science.
Okay, here is what the eminently respected Dr. Fauci said January 21 of this year.
Bottom line, we don't have to worry about this one, right?
Well, obviously you need to take it seriously and do the kinds of things that the CDC and the Department of Homeland Security are doing. But this is not a major threat for the people in the United States, and this is not something that the citizens of the United States right now should be worried about.
And a few days later, on February 3rd?
So it's still an evolving situation. We don't know exactly where it's going to go, what the pattern is, but clearly right now, at least the number of cases are accelerating.
About 1 month later, March 4.
What are we dealing with this coronavirus, COVID-19?
You know, we're dealing with an evolving situation. We're dealing with clearly an emerging infectious disease that has now reached outbreak proportions and likely pandemic proportions.
But oh, Trump has blood on his hands. This is William Hazeltine, a former Harvard medical professor, after the coronavirus was declared a pandemic.
Well, we know it's highly infectious, and as the days go by, we're learning it's more infectious than we thought it was, say, a month ago, even 2 weeks ago.
Now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wants to set up a 9/11-style commission to investigate the response to the coronavirus pandemic.
I don't know what the scientists said to him. When did the president know about this? And what did he know? What did he know and when did he know it? That's for an after-action review.
Hey, let the investigation begin. Does this mean that Speaker Pelosi will be investigating herself?
Speaker Nancy Pelosi told me she came here to Chinatown to combat fear.
That's what we're trying to do today, is to say everything is fine here. Come, because precautions have been taken. The city is on top of the situation.
The speaker was greeted by shop owners with open arms.
I love it. I love it, Nancy. I love it. I'm so glad you came. Oh, you make my store famous.
And will the Pelosi investigation include the investigation of fellow Democrats?
The risk to New Yorkers for coronavirus is low.
And our city preparedness is high.
This should not stop you from going about your life, should not stop you from going to Chinatown and going out to eat. I'm going to do that today myself.
Come to Chinatown. Here we are. We're, again, careful, safe, and come join us.
There is no concern at this time for coronavirus in our region.
The Department of Sanitation is ready for Mardi Gras 2020.
The facts are reassuring.
We want New Yorkers to go about their daily lives.
But there's really no need to panic and to avoid activities that we always do as New Yorkers. We are a hardy people.
Americans do not need to panic. What I would suggest, however, is that Americans take this as a wake-up call for seasonal flu.
There's very little threat here. This disease, even if you were to get it, basically acts like a common cold or flu.
So we're telling New Yorkers, go about your lives, take the subway, go out, enjoy life.
And certainly not to miss the parade next Sunday. I'm going to be there.
If you had to, would you close down the borders?
No.
We need to be honest about the American people, with the American people, about the fact that we can't keep people coming here from China.
And transmission is not that easy. I think there's been a misperception that coronavirus hangs in the air waiting to catch you. No, it takes direct person-to-person contact.
We also know that if it were likely to be transmitted casually, we would be seeing a lot more cases.
Right, because this is New York and you're in
Will the Speaker be investigating the New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, whose city is in the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic in this country?
It's important to just go about your lives, continue living as you have. New Yorkers should go about our lives, continue doing what we do.
This should not stop you from going about your life, should not stop you from going to Chinatown and going out to eat.
We want people still to go on about their lives. We want people to rest assured that a lot is being done to protect them.
Even now, the advice is often confusing. For example, this doctor is with the most prestigious medical center in New York. He believes there's no question if he washes his hands and doesn't touch his face, he will not contract the coronavirus.
The way that you get this is the transmission of the virus almost exclusively from your hands to your face. From your hands to your face. And so it's either into your eyes, into your nose, or into your mouth. So there's a lot of talk about contact or getting it through contact, hands to face. There's also a small thought that it can be aerosolized, that it can kind of exist a little bit in the air. The thought at this point is that you actually have to have very long, sustained contact with someone. And I'm talking about over 15 to 30 minutes in an unprotected environment, meaning you're in a very closed room without any type of mask, for you to get it that way. But to very simply state, the overwhelming majority of people are getting this by physically touching someone who has this disease or will develop it in the next 1 to 2 days, and then touching their face. The thing that makes me smile a little bit is that I actually know now that I won't get this disease because I know how to protect myself.
So, wash your hands, don't touch your face, and you won't contract the coronavirus?
Good morning and welcome back. A new study sounding the alarm as evidence suggests COVID-19 may be airborne.
We've been told for weeks to protect ourselves from respiratory droplets. So what does this distinction mean for this virus's potential spread?
But maybe not.
Singapore's health ministry says there's currently no evidence that the coronavirus can be passed on through aerosol transmission, contrary to some reports. Well, experts we spoke with are divided on the issue.
And what about face masks for the general public? Yes or no?
If you do not have any respiratory symptoms such as fever, cough, or runny nose, you do not need to wear a medical mask like this one. Mask alone can give you a false feeling of protection and can even be a source of infection when not used correctly. Masks should only be used by healthcare workers, caretakers, or by people who are sick with symptoms of fever and cough.
Okay, the WHO was talking about medical masks. You know, the ones that are in short supply for those who are in the healthcare profession. But LA Mayor Eric Garcetti recommends the wearing of some kind of protection, even if it's a bandana, for those just going out in the general public.
And early data suggests that folks who are infected are not symptomatic, which is why, with today's guidance from Governor Newsom and Dr. Ferrer from County Public Health, we are now recommending that Angelenos use homemade face coverings when they are in public and interacting with others.
So wearing face masks in general is a good idea, right? But then there's the New York State Healthcare Commissioner, Dr. Howard Zucker.
So there's no data to support the effectiveness of face masks, and I understand that usually we like to have base things on evidence, and unfortunately in difficult times like this, we have to go with expert opinion, and right now there isn't data to suggest whether masks, except for those who are ill and those who are healthcare workers, and that's why we're reserving those for healthcare workers.
When you say that health part, you're actually spitting a little bit. And that's why you need the 6 feet barrier. The problem with cloth masks is it doesn't really protect you as well as you'd like to, and you get a false sense of security. And if you play with it all the time, you actually touch your fingers to your eyes. So that doesn't help you either. So net, it's better than nothing, but not a ton better than nothing.
What do you mean? Why am I not wearing a face mask now? Okay, there are a couple of reasons. One of them is that part of in fact, the major reason to wear a face mask is to protect you from infecting you. I had my test yesterday and it's negative.
Clear as mud, right? What about the wearing of gloves when you're shopping? This epidemiologist certainly thinks it's a good idea.
Anne-Marie Gloucester, an epidemiology lecturer at the University of Washington, says if you don't have gloves, try this trick instead.
I put one of the produce bags over my hand.
So, gloves while shopping? Good idea, right? Well,
I don't like glove use. I like the hand washing and the sanitizers, and I'll tell you why. Because the gloves accumulate germs. The gloves will accumulate viruses. So, you're going to not even realize when you touch something, then you have it on the gloves, then you transfer it to your face, then you could get infected. So I don't think gloves are the right answer because you can't change them frequently enough to make a difference. So I vote no on that one, yes on the continued hand washing.
Got that? Okay. Now, once you've contracted the coronavirus and recovered, you have an immunity, right?
We don't know that for 100% certain because we haven't done the study to see re-challenges, whether they've been protected. But I feel really confident that if this virus acts like every other virus that we know, once you get infected, get better, clear the virus, that you'll have immunity that will protect you against reinfection. So it's never 100%, but I'd be willing to bet anything that people who recover are really protected against reinfection.
But the WHO says not so fast.
Do you have any reason to believe that once someone is infected, that they then become immune? Or do you think this virus will hit in waves again and again?
Other coronaviruses don't develop long-term immunity. People can get infected with those coronaviruses that cause common colds on a regular basis. So it's very important that the immune response to this organism be studied. It's too early to say for sure.
Well, to repeat, the advice given President Trump was often inconsistent, ambiguous, contradictory, or just flat out wrong. There'll be plenty of time to assess what went wrong, what went right. In the meantime, can we set aside our Trump derangement syndrome and work on treatments and a possible vaccine? Because this will not be our last pandemic. And after we're done coming up with a vaccine for the coronavirus, can we work on one for Trump derangement syndrome? I'm Larry Elder, and we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time.